Oh, you know what? Let's jump into our first subject. Something hot off the press on my mind. Interesting. Okay. I don't know how far you're comfortable going into it. And the funny theme of it is it's 8:40 right now, and Katie's trying to get me to go to church with her this morning at 11. We'll see. She's still asleep. Well, my point being, all right, Rhett and Link. Has everyone heard of Rhett and Link? Two big YouTubers, podcasters.
Yeah, get a little more of
giants
a backstory.
of the platform. All right, these dudes have been around for a while. They're two dudes. They're 41, 42 now. Best friends. They've been making content together for, I don't know, 15 years probably.
They've basically been our motivation of like how we want to be. But go on.
Yeah. They have a podcast called Ear Biscuits. And it's not their main thing by any means, but something they do on the side. But I love the format, and I love it's pretty similar. I don't think they get quite as deep a lot of the time. I'm not saying we're deep, but I don't think they're willing to get as around touchy subjects most of the time, because they kind of keep their audience a well-rounded, inviting place, not alienating anyone. But they had a couple episodes. And backstory to these guys, these are two like Southern guys, pretty typical kind of Christian-y, you know what I mean?
North Carolina.
They're from North Carolina, so
the Bible Belt.
So I relate to their growing up story almost exactly. And if you want to listen to their podcast, Ear Biscuits, they've got a few episodes. They've got one called Rhett's Deconstruction of Faith, and a separate one, Link's Deconstruction of Faith. And basically they just talk about their journey from being Christians, and while they were Christians, deep in it, to the point to where they're both now agnostic, meaning they don't know a lot of things, and they're openly like at that point, which is a pretty crazy. I don't know about you, Justin, but for me, that's a pretty crazy point to get to, openly acknowledging that you're at that point, because I haven't really done that openly, I guess, but but coming from where they're from and all the family deeply rooted in Christianity, so I get it. It's almost it's really part of your deep history, culture, going to church, these things.
They've been living over these past 40 years.
That's the only world that
there's no
know. And I'll find myself, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'll find myself gravitating towards similar people a lot of the times, not because of wanting to at all pursue Christianity or get further into that and explore it, but just because these people are a familiar thing to me. It's like you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like you can relate to these types of people. And so what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, just before you dive a little bit further, I would like to highlight the fact that here they are. They've made it. They're at this point now where everyone, most people know who Rhett and Link are. They've gone to award shows. They've probably been on the trending YouTube page.
Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. They've been. I mean, they're on the spotlight now. They've made it. They're doing what they wanted to do. And I just not really dive into how I feel about what they're coming out with, but more of the fact that I kind of like applaud them for their bravery of actually coming out and saying this kind of stuff. Because I mean, they know they're going to get some kind of backlash. They're probably going to lose some fans. But the best thing about it, and like core value to us when it comes to doing the show, is kind of remain personal. So the listeners can relate to you. They can kind of understand where you're coming from, understand what you're saying, and they took that to the extreme. I mean, this is something that is something they haven't done. In the 3-4 years that they've done a podcast, and so many years that they've done YouTube, they've kept it kind of like on the surface. You see the surface of Rhett and Link throughout all the stuff that they do. You don't really get to dive deeper into their personal lives. Yeah, they'll talk about their day or whatnot. Something kind of like what we do.
Yeah.
But to do this and to dive into the deep trenches of their past, 10, 12 years of going through this, I say it's pretty brave of them. And it's a risk business side, but I think it's very healthy for them to do it on a personal side.
Yeah, it's pretty wild because, they're established and they've got, it's like you don't want to mess with the machine at all at a certain point. So doing something like that almost seems like, for both of them, they're so calculated. They're good at what they do. Everything is like top tier calculations. Like even the thumbnails, I heard them talking about, for each video, we'll have like 3 thumbnails. We'll have the first one, and if that one doesn't work as well, we'll have plan B. We'll throw that on. If that one doesn't work well, we have a third one, which is insane because they put out videos all the time, and they have people making thumbnails, like test audience, to see which one is picking up better, and then they'll use that format. It's just pretty wild. So, of course, everything they do is so calculated. But, sorry, I'm like burping coffee over here. Ugh.
Let it out. It's fine. Big haircut.
But, I just relate to their story a lot because it's definitely something I've been not really struggling with, but just kind of not really giving much thought in the past 8 years or so. Like my faith, I don't really pursue it that much. When I go to church, it's only to kind of appease someone, I guess, or meet a friend or something. And it sounds awful, but I grew up, there's a lot of both of the themes that they're saying, especially Link, when he goes through his growing up. I grew up like very, very extremely like into the Christianity. Like that was my world. And my mindset was so wildly different. I felt guilty about doing anything wrong, cussing. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, you know what I mean. I stayed away from quote unquote like sin as much as I could all the time, and I kind of grew up thinking some. I don't know. I just grew up kind of feeling guilty a lot for no real reason, I guess. Now that I look back on it, and it's kind of similar. They're talking about the coming out thing and with their faith, and they kind of relate it to someone who's like maybe gay coming out. And that's probably the thing I can relate to the most, that I had I'm not going to blame it on the church or blame it on any one person for my mindset, but I feel like I grew up having a hard time coming to grips with like gay people, I guess. And a lot of it was, I guess, because of the way in church, it was preached a different way. And it still is in a lot of places, but that's one example of just why was I so prejudiced against people for no reason, I guess. So I don't know. I'm not really sure how to elaborate. I would just listen to their podcasts, and I relate to it a lot.
Has listening to that and them describing a little bit further, has it kind of like opened your eyes a little bit, or like make you want to dive deeper into how you feel and how your faith is kind of aligned?
Well, it's almost like I already knew how I felt. They were just saying things that I was like, couldn't even really articulate a lot of the time. I guess so. So I don't know. I've always had this, even when I was like playing music at church, like I was like, pretty deep into it. I always felt the sense of being a phony. You know what I mean? It just kind of, and I feel like I've done that a lot in my life, where I've made certain choices based on expectations, sort of. And I'm not going to talk about what choices exactly, but I've done a lot of that because of the way, this is what you're supposed to do. And this is this is the path that you're going on. This is what you're supposed to do. And I jumped into a lot of things, at times just because of expectations. And now I'm at the point I question, I kind of question everything. Like I don't fully buy into anything. I don't fully buy into a presidential candidate. I don't fully buy into the military. I've been in for 8 years. You think I'd be bought into the Air Force? I'm not. There's still a lot of things I'm detached from it,
That's just how you are as a person.
Yeah, so I just question. I think it's just just because I felt like I've made mistakes with mindsets and this and that, because I was just like going with the flow, and this is how I thought and didn't really think about it. It's just how it was. But I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to go on like I'm over here like preaching I'm being agnostic and all these things. It's just what they're saying is really interesting about how they're being open about how they've been questioning things for so long and not talking about it.
Yeah, and so you can check them out. They dive into Rhett's, who's like an hour 57 because he talks a lot. That man talks a lot. And what was interesting to me was that, I mean, Rhett comes off as a person that likes to kind of like know it all. He likes he doesn't like being wrong.
No.
So that kind of person, and you can hear him talk, that kind of person, you wouldn't be that surprised that he went through this kind of process, went through this kind of change, because he just has to, he's the kind of person that just has to see everything through and actually like find out, like actually discover it for himself instead of just going off of hearsay kind of stuff. So that was not, it's not too surprising, I guess you could say. Link, a little bit different, like a little bit different of a person when like watching and listening to him. So that was a little bit of a surprise to hear his side as well. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned that, you're from the South and you were born in, I mean, you were born into that lifestyle basically, which, was completely different from me. And that could just show the difference between the South and the North a little bit. And still to this day, it could still be around, or that's just how my family was. But church and faith was definitely never, it wasn't never like put in front, like you got to do this, you got to go through this. And it was just like, it was kind of like on a side pocket, and kind of like your back pocket, I guess you say. So I never really focused on it too much when I was a kid. And then like, through middle school, there was this neighbor, her name's Beth. I'll never forget her name. Beth, she's about 55 at this time. And, she was working at like this local church or whatever. And she's like, you should come along. So I go along, and I think it's like 6th grade that I'm in. And from that point forward, I get involved in youth group, meets up Wednesday nights, go to church Sunday. And this was still in Wisconsin. And then, I got baptized 6th grade as well later that year because that was, I finally felt connected, So after that, we moved away from Wisconsin, moved to Texas. So we moved more towards the Baptist South, all the Baptist churches around, and there goes that disconnect again. But I never felt like I was completely disconnected like I was when I was a kid. It was more of I know where my faith still aligns, but I'm just not that integrated as I was. So it wasn't until go ahead.
Tough. No, go ahead. I don't want to cut off your thing.
Oh no, you're good. I was kind of giving a background. I wasn't going too much into detail about where I stand and whatnot, but I know with my family, it wasn't the main priority, and that could just been the northern side of things. And then I met Tori and her family from the South, a little bit different. And then, my what am I trying to say? My switch. That's what it is. I'm just snapping my fingers over here trying to say switch. Switch flipped, and it's kind of more of the lifestyle that I was expecting to live all my life, I guess, And as the Christian I am, I like to. Is there such thing as a closet Christian? Is that a term? Like, I know what I believe in. I'm knowledgeable of what I believe in.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten to the point where I express what I believe in publicly all the time.
Yeah.
So whenever there is discussion about religion, faith, Christianity, and all that kind of stuff, I tend to take the back seat, listen, observe, and I really haven't got to the point where I want my voice to be heard, if that kind of makes sense. I felt like I was rambling there for a little bit, and I apologize, but I kind of just giving a little background.
I felt the same, which I think was, I want to clarify that I'm not criticizing the way I grew up. I feel like it was good, and I loved some of the greatest people I've known are some of the people I've met through church, of course. And some of the most disappointing and shocking people I've known I have also been in a church. But that's okay. But yeah, you were saying like, I guess that's why I felt like I had struggled for so long was I never felt like two different ways. I could never feel like if someone came at me and wanted me to defend my faith, there's no way I could, which made me not, which kind of like made me feel like I didn't want to represent this as a part of me unless I felt in my bones it was real and I could defend it and I could, because the older I get, the more I'm like, I want whatever thoughts I'm marrying myself to, I want to make sure I have a strong foundation on why, instead of it just being a part of who I grew up as in this little bubble, or whatever. I just want it to be something I can for sure go on about and defend, I guess. And I felt like I never could even get close to that, so it felt like a phony thing. But on the opposite side, you put me up against someone who's well-versed in it, it's like I almost couldn't even defend to someone why I didn't believe, if that makes sense. So it's like somewhere you're somewhere in the middle, because you have both that can super persuade you, they're well-versed in the Bible histories, and then there's someone else that's well-versed in the contradictions and the things that have been proven scientifically that aren't even true, and then you're like, well, that's pretty convincing. And I don't know. I just feel like I don't want to sit in the middle. I don't want to say I'm voting for some candidate who I can't fully get behind. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to promote any idea, any brand, anything that I can't fully get behind. And I don't know. I guess that's what it boils down to for me is I just have a hard time. I don't know. I don't have peace about it. I didn't have peace about it when I was younger. And I'm on a path to trying to find, not happiness, just trying to find a peace of mind about things, about how I'm living my life, I guess. And when I'm trying to think about all that, it just brings a lot of, I don't know, just brings a lot of negativity in my head. I don't know. It's weird. I don't want to ramble about it, but I don't know. That's all I got. I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear where I'm at.
Okay. So I guess we won't dive into too much further. If anyone wants to talk to us more on a personal level, please reach out to us. And I guess the final thing I'll say about it is it's an interesting topic that Rhett and Link talk about. We dove into it a little bit. I think the big thing is, and not just talking about faith, Jesse talked about it, just presidential candidates, talking about any kind of ideas, anything in life where you have to pick and choose. Don't let it tear you apart is the big thing. You got a lot of people that sit in silence and they are stuck with these kind of decisions, and then they feel like they're forced to make one and they're just not happy about that. And it's an inner struggle with them. You just got to speak up. You got to find someone to talk to. You got to find someone that will listen to you, most importantly, not just talk to you, but someone that will listen to you. And then fight through it, It's that kind of thing. No one wants to see anyone struggle in silence. So it's not a good thing. Man, we getting deep again?